Hi, I'm Evelyn. I was banned from my own family's yacht trip. No warning, no conversation, just deleted. My name was removed from the guest list, quietly replaced like I'd never existed. But here's what hurt more than being excluded. It was the way I kept convincing myself it was a mistake. How many family brunches had I sat through thinking I was part of something? Only to find out I was never even on the guest map. I always start my mornings the same way. A slow breath. Coffee in the ceramic mug with a tiny chip on the rim I never bothered to replace. That morning, sun came through the kitchen window just right, making the countertops glow. Noah had already left for an early site visit. He's a civil engineer, and the air still carried a trace of his cologne. I wasn't looking for anything when I opened my phone. Habit, mostly. Just skimming email and calendar pings. Then I saw it. A boomerang from my niece Lena's Instagram story. Glasses clinking. Champagne fizzing in the morning light. The background? The yacht. Caption: family tradition loading, can't wait to set sail. I stopped scrolling. The annual Hart family yacht trip. A so-called legacy gathering. I'd been invited twice in 8 years of marriage. The first time, I offered to redesign the guest cabins. Valerie, my sister-in-law, smiled thinly and said, "Don't overstep." The second time, I was told to please be mindful of where I sat at dinner. I clicked into the post. And then another. There was Lena again. And Valerie, of course, in one of her signature linen jumpsuits, arms thrown around her husband's shoulders. Their mother, Gloria, my mother-in-law, sipping a mimosa like she invented the ocean. Even Noah's cousin Jeremy was there, laughing with his new fiancé. Everyone. Except me. I opened the old group chat. Hart Heritage Voyagers. Once upon a time, Noah had added me. Sometime after that, I'd been removed. Quietly. No messages, no itinerary, no email. Nothing. I stared at my phone. My coffee was now cold. But what spread inside me wasn't heat or panic. It was stillness. That cold, sinking confirmation you get when you realize this wasn't an accident. Later that day, while rinsing a glass, my phone buzzed. A message from Valerie. But it wasn't meant for me. It was a screenshot of a group text. Cabin assignments. Mine had been crossed out. Beside it, a new name. Shayna, her Pilates instructor. The one who once asked me if I was Noah's assistant. Then a voice note followed. Valerie laughing. At least the energy won't be so stiff this year. I didn't reply. I just set the phone down. My hands were steady, but my jaw ached from clenching. And that was the moment I stopped wondering why they didn't want me there, and started asking why I'd spent so long trying to be. That night, over grilled salmon and roasted carrots, I waited. Noah was half listening, half scrolling through stock tickers on his phone. I poured us both water, let the silence stretch just long enough. "Did you know your family's planning another yacht trip?" I asked, keeping my voice light, like it was a casual thought. He glanced up, brows slightly furrowed. "Yeah, Mom mentioned it last week, I think. They're still finalizing the list." I tilted my head. "Am I on that list?" Noah set his fork down. Not abruptly. More like someone gently setting aside something fragile. "Of course. Why wouldn't you be?" I smiled with the corner of my mouth. "Just enough." "No reason. Just curious." He nodded, eyes already drifting back to his phone. "I'll double-check." He wouldn't. He never did. After dinner, I washed the dishes by hand, one by one. It's funny how silence can scream louder than a slammed door. When I dried the last plate, my phone buzzed again. This time it was an email. Subject: cancellation confirmation. Blue Marlin Yacht Charter. I opened it. Cabin 3. Released. Request submitted 4 days ago. By Valerie Hart. There it was, in writing. My breath didn't catch. My heart didn't race, I just stood still. I forwarded the email to myself, then printed it. Slipped it into a file folder in the bottom drawer of my desk, the one labeled Joint Assets. That folder was going to need a new name soon. Later that night, Noah watched ESPN in the den. I sat at the dining table, my laptop open but untouched. The screen glowed with a blank note. I titled it, Things She's Done That I Let Slide. The list came fast. Left me off the holiday itinerary twice. Told a friend I was mostly decorative at family functions. Once posted a photo from Noah's birthday and cropped me out entirely. Claimed my table arrangement at the 50th anniversary party was chaotic and took credit for the fix, my exact design. By the time I stopped typing, my jaw ached again. Not from fury, from clarity. I closed the laptop, walked into the bedroom. Noah was already half asleep, TV light flickering across his face. "She says it was a mistake," I said. He didn't open his eyes. Maybe it was. I turned off the light and lay back in bed, staring at the ceiling fans spinning like clock hands that never stopped. Maybe it wasn't the yacht. Maybe it never was. Maybe it was every small exclusion. Every smile with teeth. Every time I looked the other way and told myself, pick your battles, I reached into my drawer, pulled out my journal. Wrote just one sentence. Watch me. The next morning, I sat at the breakfast table with a mug of coffee that had gone cold before I even remembered to sip it. Outside, Savannah was waking up. Humid and golden. The kind of light that made you forget how heavy things could feel inside. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was somewhere deeper than that. I was remembering. 5 years ago, I stood in a cheap navy suit on the 14th floor of a downtown high-rise, pitching a redesign for a boutique hotel that couldn't afford to get it wrong. I had barely launched my firm back then. No assistants, no team, just me, a borrowed laptop, and floor plans I stayed up 2 nights sketching. They hired me. That job changed everything. It wasn't overnight. There were still rejections, budget nightmares, a string of late payments, but it gave me traction, momentum, validation. I used my first big bonus to buy something no one else could take credit for. A yacht. Nothing flashy. Clean lines, minimalist wood accents, a name I chose myself. Horizon Blue. I remember the day I signed the check. The man across the table looked surprised. "You're sure?" he asked. I was. Not because I had something to prove, because I already had. But when our accountant suggested adding Noah's name for tax efficiency and future planning, I didn't argue. "Better for the trust," he said. Cleaner down the line. And just like that, my yacht became our asset. Then the family's tradition. Valerie hosted the first brunch on board 3 months later. She called it a tribute to the Heart legacy. She toasted with crystal glasses, saying, "It's beautiful how family builds something together." Then she turned to me and smiled like I was just another guest. "Evelyn's taste helped so much. Didn't she do lovely work?" Lovely work. Like I was the decorator. It was subtle, intentional. And I let it happen. I smiled, nodded, thought, pick your battles. But piece by piece, they turned something I'd built into something they claimed. And when Valerie's voice echoed through that voice note, "At least the energy won't be so stiff this year," I finally heard it for what it was. Not a snub, a strategy. They didn't just want me gone from the trip. They wanted me gone from the story, from the legacy, from the thing I had built with my own 2 hands. And they almost got away with it. But they forgot something. They didn't erase a guest. They tried to erase the owner. And I had the receipts. I didn't pack a swimsuit. Didn't pack sandals or the wide-brimmed hat Valerie once gifted me, then took back when I left it at their lake house. What I packed instead were documents. Ownership deeds, bank wires, emails with timestamps. Every line of proof they had hoped I'd never unearth. I slipped them into a leather folder and zipped my suitcase shut with a calm I hadn't felt in months. When I walked downstairs the next morning, the light in the kitchen was soft, filtered through the linen curtains I'd sewn by hand 3 summers ago. Noah sat at the table, reading a news article on his tablet, the way he always did before pretending the world was stable. I poured myself coffee. "I'm heading to Charleston this afternoon," I said. He looked up, surprised. "That soon?" I booked the car. I didn't explain further. He didn't ask. He rubbed his temple. "Eve, can't we just talk to them first? I don't want to escalate something that's probably just—" I cut in gently. "It's not a misunderstanding, Noah. It's math. And the numbers are in ink." He looked at me like he didn't know whether to argue or apologize, but he didn't say another word. When the driver pulled up, I walked out with my suitcase, folder in hand. Neutral dress, low heels, hair tied back. No makeup, but enough composure to turn heads if I needed to. The drive to Charleston was quiet. My thoughts weren't. By the time we reached the marina, the sun had dropped low over the water, casting gold across the dock like a carpet I didn't need permission to walk. The yacht shimmered in place, sleek and still. I felt my spine lengthen. Valerie stood at the dock, mid-laugh, surrounded by her curated circle of cousins, influencers, and family ornamentals. She turned her head when she saw me. The smile faltered, then died completely. I didn't look at her. I didn't speak. I just walked forward, past the stairs, past the whispers, past the man who once said I looked too serious to belong on water. Then came the voice. Crisp, clear, unmistakable. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Hart. Owner is now aboard." It echoed across the dock like a bell struck at just the right frequency. I didn't turn to see her face. I didn't need to. I knew what it would look like. A face trying to stay composed while the floor gave way beneath her. I walked up the ramp, past champagne flutes and pastel dresses. Past the place settings Valerie had no doubt agonized over. I wasn't there to belong. I was there to reclaim. And they had no idea what was coming next. The yacht's main lounge glowed with curated warmth. Brushed brass fixtures, cream cushions, eucalyptus garlands woven into centerpieces. I recognized my own design choices in every corner, though no one ever gave me credit for them. I didn't sit. I stood near the wide-paneled window, letting the hum of the yacht's engine pulse through my heels as we pushed away from the dock. Behind me, the atmosphere shifted, laughter thinning, whispers growing heavier. Valerie didn't approach at first. She was too busy salvaging her narrative. She moved to the upper deck with her phone angled just right. I watched her through the reflection in the glass. "Hi, everyone," she began, her voice syrup smooth. "We're so excited to share a glimpse of our family tradition. There's just something sacred about the sea. It reminds us who we are and where we come from." She smiled wider. Legacy, loyalty, love. The caption practically wrote itself. I nearly laughed. As she walked along the deck, a uniformed crew member stepped into frame, unaware or maybe very aware, and said cheerfully, "Glad to have you aboard again, Ms. Hart. The owner's quarters are fully prepared." The camera didn't swing, but her expression? It cracked, subtly, then unmistakably. A split-second silence followed. You could hear the sea slapping against the hull. A fork dropped somewhere below. Then she ended the stream in a rush, fingers fumbling the screen. I didn't need to check the comments to know the damage was done. It wasn't just awkward. It was public. 15 minutes later, she found me alone near the staircase. "You planned that," she hissed. Her voice was tight, her shoulders stiff with performance. I turned, calm. "Planned what?" "That announcement." She stepped closer. "You told him to say it." I set my glass down slowly. "No, Valerie, I didn't tell him anything." I leaned in slightly. "I just stopped covering for you." She blinked, jaw tightening. "You don't belong here." I smiled just enough. "That's the thing. I don't need to belong. I bought my place." Her mouth opened like she had something grand prepared, but nothing came out. Just silence. She turned and walked away, heels clicking too fast on the teak flooring. A sound of retreat, not rage. And that was when I knew. She wasn't shocked I showed up. She was shocked I didn't flinch. Dinner that night was a performance. Valerie's stage, her script, her curated guest list, all still pretending nothing had happened, though their eyes darted too often toward me. The table stretched across the main deck under string lights and soft jazz, with gold-rimmed plates and name cards in perfect alignment. Valerie stood at the head, glass of rosé raised, voice smooth as always. "I just want to thank everyone for being here," she began, beaming. "This tradition isn't just about luxury, it's about legacy. About who contributes to the heartbeat of our family, those who understand what it means to uphold that story with grace." People nodded, smiled. Someone clinked a glass. I waited, not to interrupt, to arrive. When she lowered her glass, I stood. calm, measured. I reached into the leather folder and withdrew 2 sheets of paper, one cream-colored, the other a copy on firm legal stock. I set them down in the center of the table, beside the flower arrangement Valerie had likely fluffed herself. "I'd like to contribute something," I said, "to the legacy conversation." All movement stopped. I slid the top page forward. "This is a transcript from a call Valerie had with her legal consultant last month," I said, tapping the bottom. The sentence was highlighted in yellow. "She's not blood. She shouldn't own a family asset. Valerie Hart." A breath caught in someone's throat. Valerie's expression didn't shift. Not visibly, but her fingers clenched around her napkin, knuckles pale. I set the second document beside the first. "This is the original purchase agreement for Horizon Blue. Down payment made solely by Evelyn Hart. Co-ownership added for estate planning. No funds provided by the Hart family." Noah didn't say a word. He stared at the page like it might rearrange itself into something more convenient. "I'm not bringing this up to cause embarrassment," I continued. "I'm bringing it up because I'm tired of watching someone else narrate my story, without facts, without acknowledgement, and certainly without permission." Valerie opened her mouth, closed it. Gloria, the matriarch in pearls, cleared her throat as if she might steer the ship back toward calm waters. "Well, perhaps this isn't the place," but someone else spoke up. It was Jeremy, Noah's cousin. "I think it's exactly the place," he said. "She's been edited out of this family long enough." Murmurs followed. Aunt Josephine nodded slowly. A niece pushed her chair back just slightly, as if repositioning herself in a story she now saw differently. I didn't linger. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder. "Legacy," I said quietly, "doesn't come from bloodlines. It comes from the truth we're willing to protect." And then I sat back down. Not triumphant, just unshaken. After the documents hit the table, nothing felt the same. There was no screaming, no scandalous exit, just an atmosphere that cracked. A silence that wasn't empty. It was charged. Valerie didn't finish her wine. She excused herself with a tight smile, disappearing below deck like the whole yacht had tilted sideways and she needed to regain balance. She didn't return for dessert. Gloria avoided eye contact. Noah? He hadn't said a word since I sat down. He just stared at his plate, hands folded too neatly in his lap. When we returned to the cabin that night, I unzipped the folder and placed it on the desk by the porthole window. The papers inside weren't just receipts. They were my spine. Built quietly over years, Noah stood by the small dresser, folding a shirt he hadn't even worn. I watched him, wondering if he felt the same weight I did, or if silence was just easier than accountability. Finally, he spoke. "I think I always knew," he said, his voice low, like a confession. "Not all of it, but enough. I saw how she talked to you. I just didn't want to believe she meant it." I didn't answer. I waited. "I should have stepped in," he added. "Each time she cut you out, every birthday brunch, every time she claimed something you did was hers. I stayed quiet. Thought if I didn't choose a side, it would fix itself." My throat tightened, not with anger, with exhaustion. "You let her write the script," I said quietly. "And let me play the extra." He nodded. Not defensive, not dramatic, just finally aware. We didn't talk much more. No apologies, no tears. Just two people finally looking at the same wall that had been there for years. The next morning, I got up early, made coffee and sat alone in the lounge with my notebook. The sea was calm, the kind of calm that makes you believe in starting over. A few guests passed through. They didn't say much. Some offered small nods, not quite apologies, but no longer dismissals either. Aunt Josephine lingered near the bar and eventually muttered, "I think I owe you a different kind of respect than I gave." She didn't wait for a reply, just placed a sugar spoon beside my mug and walked away. Later, Jeremy passed me on the upper deck. He gave a quiet nod and said, "For what it's worth, we see you now." I didn't need everyone's validation, just enough to remind me that I wasn't invisible. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a guest. I felt like the owner. When I returned home, the house greeted me like an old friend that had waited patiently. The light in the hallway was still soft. The floor still creaked by the pantry. Nothing had changed. Except me. I didn't unpack right away. I left the suitcase by the front door and walked into the kitchen, fingers grazing the marble island I had refinished myself when we first moved in. It still had the faint scratch from when I dropped a sample tile, a flaw no one else ever noticed, one I had learned to love. 2 days later, while organizing the credenza drawer, I found something wedged behind old receipts and warranty cards. A small folded note. The handwriting was my father's. Blocky, confident, deliberate. Don't fight for a seat. Build your own table. I had no memory of when he gave it to me, but I remembered exactly how it felt to read those words. Like they were waiting for this moment. That weekend, I hosted brunch. Not a show. Not a spectacle. Just people who'd earned a seat at my table. Callista came, my friend and colleague who'd quietly sent me screenshots and never once said, "I told you so." Jeremy brought fresh peaches. Aunt Josephine, a bouquet of daffodils and a hesitant smile. Noah made the coffee. He didn't try to lead. He just showed up, present and quiet in a way I hadn't seen from him in years. I didn't invite everyone. I didn't need to. Legacy, I realized, isn't something you inherit. It's something you claim when no one's watching. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lena, Valerie's daughter. 22, quiet, always watching from the sidelines. "Hi, Evelyn. I know this might be weird, but can I ask you something? I want to start a sustainable design nonprofit, and you're the only person in the family who actually built something. Would you look at my proposal?" I stared at the message, surprised at how steady my heart felt. My reply was simple. Of course. Let's talk soon. Later that afternoon, after everyone had left and the house had fallen into that comforting hush of post-conversation quiet, I sat alone at the dining table. It wasn't the one from Noah's parents. It wasn't Valerie's reclaimed oak centerpiece she bragged about in home blogs. This table was mine. Bought secondhand. Sanded, stained, sealed with my own hands. No spotlight, no speeches. Just space. And people who wanted to be there. Not because of legacy or last names, but because they chose to be. I had spent years waiting for an invitation, and in the end, I didn't need one. Because the most powerful thing I ever did was stop asking for a seat and build my own.